The stars above Virilia shimmered like scattered diamonds, stretching across the black velvet sky. The royal convoy glided through space, a procession of shining ships carrying the queen and her entourage to the frontier colonies. Among them was a human named Ethan, a rare ambassador from Earth. He had studied alien cultures for years, learning to blend diplomacy with curiosity. Yet he had never imagined himself in a situation where his courage would be tested. The Queen of Virilia, serene and dignified, sat in her command cabin. Her long, silver robes seemed to flow like liquid moonlight. Though surrounded by guards and attendants, she wore a calm expression, her violet eyes reflecting the passing stars. She had traveled countless systems and faced many challenges. But something about this mission felt uncertain. Perhaps it was the rumors of strange storms forming on uncharted moons. Or perhaps her intuition whispered of challenges beyond the ordinary. Ethan watched her quietly, noting the subtle grace in her movements. Humans were rare in Virilia, and his position as an ambassador was unusual. Unlike the trained alien guards, he carried no weapon, no protective armor, only his wit, observations, and a willingness to act when logic demanded it. Many of the Virilian officials had doubted his usefulness, but Ethan had learned long ago that in strange situations, creativity often mattered more than strength. The convoy's sensors suddenly flickered. A warning beep echoed softly in the cabin. "Commander," the Queen asked, her voice calm yet tinged with curiosity. "What is it?" The lead Virilian officer, a tall figure with elongated limbs and pale blue skin, frowned. "A storm, Your Majesty. It is unlike any we have encountered. Its electromagnetic fields are fluctuating. It will interfere with our systems if we do not land immediately." The Queen's gaze turned toward the viewport. Far below, an uncharted moon drifted silently in the void. Swirls of color glimmered across its surface, evidence of the strange storm. "Prepare for an emergency landing," she said. "We cannot risk the convoy being damaged in orbit." Ethan felt a flutter of unease. His knowledge of human technology, combined with his studies of alien environments, told him the storm might be more than just atmospheric. It could interfere with communications, navigation, and energy shields. He glanced at the guards, noting the tension in their posture. Every one of them was trained to respond to threats with efficiency and precision, yet something in the storm made even them cautious. The convoy descended, shaking slightly as the atmosphere of the moon clawed at the ships. Lights flickered, and the engines hummed under strain. As the main ship touched down, a sudden jolt threw some attendants off balance. The Queen remained steady, her composure unbroken, though Ethan could sense a small tightening around her eyes, a sign of awareness that not all danger could be seen. The guards were the first to act. They scanned the perimeter, weapons drawn, even though Ethan knew the storm was not a living threat. Yet in moments, they began moving back toward the ship, their instincts telling them to seek safety, as the storm's energy shifted unpredictably. One by one, the guards vanished behind protective shields, leaving the Queen and her human ambassador exposed. Ethan froze for only a second. Logic screamed. A human had no chance if the storm hit directly. And yet instinct whispered that leaving now would be cowardly. He stepped forward. "Your Majesty," he said gently, "we need to move to higher ground. Or at least behind the ridge. The energy storm is unstable. It will strike unpredictably." The Queen turned her eyes to him, a faint spark of surprise in her expression. "You will stay?" she asked. Her voice was soft but firm, carrying the weight of centuries of royal presence. Ethan nodded. "I must. I may not be strong like your guards, but I can think quickly, and we can use the terrain to shield ourselves." The Queen considered him for a moment, then inclined her head. "Then we stay together. Lead the way." Ethan gestured toward a natural ridge overlooking the landing zone. The ground was uneven, scattered with jagged rocks and strange, glowing flora. He pointed out potential shelters, places where the Queen could remain safe, while he devised methods to reduce exposure to the storm's energy. As they moved, the storm above the moon grew brighter, tendrils of electric light rippling across the sky. It was mesmerizing, almost beautiful, yet deadly. Ethan remembered a principle he had learned from Earth's old explorers. Beauty often hides danger. He noted the wind currents, the magnetic fluctuations, and the small tremors underfoot. Each detail was a piece of a puzzle he needed to solve to keep them safe. By the time they reached a small plateau, Ethan had already begun arranging elements of their landing equipment to create a protective barrier. Panels from the ship, reflective surfaces, and even sections of the ridge's natural rock formed a partial shield. The Queen watched him quietly, occasionally assisting with small adjustments. "You humans have an unusual way of solving problems," she said, her tone both curious and approving. Ethan smiled faintly. "We rely on thinking quickly. Sometimes we don't have the luxury of strength or numbers. So, creativity is our tool." The storm began to pulse, a wave of energy rippling through the air like a living thing. Ethan calculated its movements, adjusting their shields accordingly. Tiny sparks of energy danced along the reflective panels, but none reached the Queen. Her eyes followed him, admiration growing for this strange human who faced danger with intellect rather than force. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Every pulse of the storm tested Ethan's arrangements. Small obstacles threatened to shift the panels. Minor tremors loosened rocks, yet he adapted each time, never panicking. The Queen remained calm, observing, learning. She realized that true courage did not always roar. It sometimes thought, adjusted, and endured quietly. Then, a soft vibration beneath their feet signaled a change. The storm's core was moving, targeting the plateau directly. Ethan studied the shadows, the energy readings, and the wind. He spotted a natural dip nearby, a hollow in the rock that could serve as a more effective shelter. "This way," he said, taking the Queen's hand gently and guiding her toward the hollow. "It's safer here. We can wait out the storm without exposure." They moved swiftly but carefully. Ethan's human reflexes, attuned to improvisation and rapid problem-solving, made the difference. What the alien guards might have approached cautiously or avoided entirely, he navigated with a mixture of intuition and careful calculation. Inside the hollow, Ethan arranged the final pieces of protection, creating a reflective enclosure to disperse the storm's energy. The Queen watched, silent, but fascinated. "You have saved more than your own life today," she said quietly. "You have saved mine as well." Ethan shook his head. "I only did what was necessary. Strategy, observation, and quick thinking, that's all humans can offer. But sometimes, it's enough." Outside, the storm raged, but the hollow held firm. The Queen and Ethan remained safe, a testament to human ingenuity and courage. They waited, side by side, as flashes of energy danced across the sky, knowing that this was only the beginning of an unusual alliance, one that would test intellect, trust, and the extraordinary capabilities of humanity in ways neither of them could yet imagine. As the first signs of the storm's subsiding glow appeared on the horizon, Ethan looked at the Queen. She looked back, a small smile forming. "Tomorrow, we face the unknown," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "And I'll be ready." Humans have a way of adapting, even when everyone else retreats. For the first time, the Queen understood the unique value of a human. Not strength, not speed, but cleverness, courage, and unwavering determination. The night on the strange moon was long, but in that shelter, a quiet bond formed, one that would guide them through trials the galaxy had yet to reveal. And somewhere deep in the storm's heart, energy crackled, waiting, as if testing whether this unusual duo, human and Queen, would endure what lay ahead. The storm above the moon had not fully passed, yet the hollow Ethan had discovered offered some safety. Outside, bursts of strange light rippled across the sky, flickering like celestial fireworks. The Queen remained calm, sitting on a smooth rock surface, watching the human move with quiet efficiency. Every adjustment he made seemed thoughtful, precise, and instinctive. You have a very different way of facing danger, the Queen said, her violet eyes observing him. Most of my guards would have hidden or run. You. She paused, unsure how to describe his calm determination. You think? Ethan gave a small smile, brushing a loose strand of hair from his face. Thinking is something humans rely on. We may not have the strongest arms or fastest reflexes, but when the unexpected comes, thinking clearly can matter more than strength. The Queen nodded, letting the words sink in. She had seen courage before, but not like this. Humans were a rarity in her galaxy, often underestimated, and yet here he was, a lone human, standing firm while all her guards had fled. The first challenge came as a subtle vibration underfoot. Ethan stopped mid-step, scanning the floor with careful eyes. Tiny cracks had formed in the hollow, likely due to the storm's unusual energy. He traced the cracks, noting their direction, then moved several panels to reinforce the hollow's walls. You see these fissures? He asked, pointing to the cracks. If they widen, our shelter could collapse. But with small adjustments, we can prevent that. The Queen leaned closer, intrigued. And how did you know what to do? Observation, Ethan said simply. Predict patterns. Use what's available. That is human strength. Tools, environment, logic, all work together. Minutes passed as Ethan worked, rearranging reflective panels and small energy conduits from the landing ship to stabilize the hollow. Each adjustment dispersed the storm's energy slightly differently, reducing its impact inside. The Queen, fascinated, helped where she could, passing items carefully and following his instructions. You are patient, she said. And precise. It is. Impressive, Ethan shrugged. We have to be. Hasty decisions often cause more problems than the danger itself. Outside, the storm shifted, the energy pulses growing stronger again. Ethan noticed a flicker in the air, a subtle movement in the moon's flora. Glowing plants swayed unnaturally, bending toward the hollow as if drawn by the storm. Ethan studied them. They are not dangerous, he explained. They react to energy. But if they break or move into us, they could block exits. We need to guide them without damage. Using reflective panels and careful placement of rocks, Ethan created channels to redirect the flora away from the hollow. It was a delicate operation, requiring patience and understanding of patterns rather than force. The Queen watched silently, admiration growing. You are not like anyone I have ever known, she said quietly. You do not fight, yet you protect. You do not rush, yet you act. Ethan glanced at her. Protection does not always require fighting. Sometimes the greatest courage is in thinking ahead, planning carefully, and staying calm while others panic. The Queen studied him, noting the truth in his words. The storm was a reminder that intelligence and adaptability often mattered more than physical strength. She had relied on guards for so long, but here was a human showing her that courage could take many forms. As the storm's energy pulses shifted, Ethan realized that the hollow would only provide partial protection for a limited time. The terrain around them was uneven, and the only safer position was further up the slope, toward a natural ridge that overlooked the moon's valley. This hollow is temporary, Ethan said. We need to move higher. The ridge will give us a better advantage. Less exposure to the storm's core energy. The Queen nodded, standing carefully. Lead the way, she said, her tone resolute. She had already decided that she trusted this human. All her guards had fled, yet Ethan remained calm, thoughtful, and brave. He was the only one who could guide her safely. Ethan gestured for her to follow and stepped cautiously onto the slope. Each footfall was calculated, avoiding loose stones and unstable ground. The Queen mirrored his movements. Trusting his guidance, the storm continued to pulse, sending waves of energy that lit up the alien landscape in flashes of green and violet. Halfway up the slope, Ethan paused. We need to move these panels to create a bridge over this gap, he said. A small fissure, invisible to most, cut through the rocky path. It's narrow, but with the panels, we can cross safely. Together, they adjusted the reflective panels, aligning them to form a stable surface. The Queen, careful but intrigued, helped balance them. When the makeshift bridge was ready, Ethan stepped onto it first, testing its strength. The panels held. He signaled the Queen to follow, and she crossed without hesitation. Once on the ridge, they looked back. The hollow below was partially obscured by the storm, but it had served its purpose. More importantly, they were now in a position where the storm's energy pulses were weaker, giving them time to plan their next move. Ethan studied the ridge carefully. Small natural barriers could serve as additional protection if needed. Reflective rock surfaces could disperse energy. There were even some abandoned observation posts from earlier explorers that could be adapted for shelter. "This ridge will hold us for now," Ethan said. "But we need to keep thinking. The storm is unpredictable, and we cannot rely on luck." The Queen smiled faintly. "Your caution is reassuring. I have seen many brave beings, but few with your combination of calm and thoughtfulness." Underface, Ethan glanced at her. "It's what humans do. We adapt, we observe, we adjust." The night deepened, and the storm's pulses became intermittent. It was still dangerous, but the immediate threat had lessened. Ethan suggested they rest, though he remained alert, scanning the environment for subtle signs of change. During the quiet, the Queen spoke. "Tell me about your people, Ethan. Humans. I realize now that there is more to you than I understood before." Ethan smiled softly. "We are adaptable, curious, sometimes stubborn. We rely on thinking, on solving problems. That has allowed us to survive in situations much harsher than this." "And you would face any storm to protect someone else?" she asked, her voice quiet. Ethan considered her question. "Protection is not about fighting. It's about ensuring safety, no matter the challenge. That's what I am doing now. You could call it courage, but I call it thinking ahead." The Queen nodded, clearly moved. She had always relied on strength and strategy in her own way, but she recognized that human courage was different. It was quiet, thoughtful, and, in many ways, more enduring than sheer force. As they watched the storm, Ethan noticed small creatures beginning to emerge from the moon's strange flora. Tiny, luminous beings, curious but cautious. He smiled. "Even they are cautious. That's a good sign. Everything has a rhythm. We just need to find it." With gentle guidance, he led the Queen in observing the creatures without disturbing them. Using small gestures and movements, he created a path that allowed them to pass safely while maintaining the Queen's position on the ridge. It was a subtle, clever display of strategy, avoiding conflict entirely, yet achieving complete safety. Hours passed. The storm gradually weakened, its pulses spreading more thinly across the sky. Ethan adjusted reflective panels, monitored small tremors, and guided the Queen in moving to the safest spots. By dawn, the sky above the moon had cleared partially, revealing stars and distant planets. The Queen looked at him with respect. "I have seen bravery," she said softly. "But today, I have seen ingenuity. You have protected more than a life. Ethan, you have proven the strength of your people." Ethan shook his head. "We are just humans. But sometimes, just being clever, staying calm, and thinking ahead, that is enough." They stood together, the first rays of light illuminating the alien landscape. For the Queen, the storm was no longer just a natural threat. It had become a lesson in trust, courage, and the unique value of humans in a galaxy that often underestimated them. Ethan knew the storm was not over. It had tested them, and it would test them again. But he also knew that humans had something rare, the ability to adapt, survive, and protect others without relying on strength alone. And somewhere in the distance, beyond the ridge, a faint glimmer hinted at the next challenge awaiting them, an unknown obstacle that would require every ounce of ingenuity, patience, and courage that only a human could provide. The first light of Virelia's twin suns stretched across the alien moon, casting long shadows over jagged rocks and glowing flora. Ethan and the Queen stood on the ridge, surveying the valley below. The storm had subsided, but its effects remained: cracks in the terrain, scattered debris, and the occasional flicker of residual energy reminded them that danger was not yet gone. Ethan studied the path ahead carefully. The valley was narrow, bordered by steep cliffs and jagged rock formations. Any misstep could lead to injury or trap them in a precarious position. The Queen followed his lead, her trust in the human unwavering. She had seen courage before, but Ethan's calm, calculated actions inspired something deeper: admiration and respect for human ingenuity. "This path is tricky," Ethan said, pointing toward a stretch where the rocks formed a natural arch. "It looks stable, but small tremors could shift the stones. We need to cross carefully." Step by step, the Queen nodded. "I will follow your instructions. I trust you." Ethan smiled faintly. "That's all I ask. Observe, adjust, and move slowly." They began their descent, moving along the narrow path. Ethan tested each stone before stepping on it, using small reflective panels from their ship to distribute weight and prevent accidental slips. The Queen mirrored him, placing her feet where he indicated, trusting his judgment. Midway through the valley, they encountered a small chasm, barely wide enough to step across, yet too dangerous to jump. Ethan examined it, noting the placement of rocks and natural bridges nearby. "Hold this," he said, handing the Queen a lightweight panel. "Place it across as a temporary bridge. I'll guide you." With careful placement, they created a makeshift crossing. The Queen stepped onto it tentatively, then gained confidence as Ethan supported her with verbal guidance. Ensuring each movement was precise, the human's ingenuity, relying on observation and quick thinking, allowed them to cross safely without fear. Once across, they paused to rest, their breaths visible in the cool air of the moon's morning. The Queen turned to Ethan. "You humans, you see solutions where others only see danger," she said. "Even in situations I would have considered hopeless, you find a way forward." "Do," Ethan shrugged modestly. "We learn to adapt. Strength is useful, but thinking ahead can save far more lives." As they continued through the valley, Ethan noticed subtle patterns in the moon's environment. Small, glowing creatures emerged from the flora, curious but cautious. Instead of ignoring them, he studied their behavior, noting that their movement could indicate shifts in energy fields or unstable terrain. "These creatures are like sensors," he explained to the Queen. "They react to changes we might not notice. If we follow their paths carefully, we can avoid trouble before it reaches us." The Queen watched in silence, impressed. Humans did not rely on force alone. They observed, learned, and adapted in ways that few alien species could comprehend. Further along, a sudden tremor rattled the valley. Loose rocks skidded across the path, and a small boulder tumbled dangerously close. Ethan acted quickly, using a reflective panel to block the boulder's path, diverting it safely to one side. The Queen stepped back, heart racing, yet unafraid because Ethan's calm presence reassured her. "You anticipate everything," she said, her voice tinged with amazement. "Even the smallest threat." Ethan shook his head. "Not everything. Just what I can see. But small steps, careful observation, they make a big difference." As the day progressed, they approached a steep incline leading to a natural plateau. It was the only safe route forward, but the path was narrow and littered with loose rocks. Ethan studied it carefully, then picked up small stones, placing them strategically to form stable footholds. "Step here first," he instructed, "then shift your weight slowly. Use the rocks to balance. I'll guide you." The Queen followed precisely, impressed by the human's ability to navigate what seemed like an impossible path. Each step was calculated, each movement deliberate. The incline tested their endurance, yet they continued steadily, neither rushing nor faltering. Halfway up, Ethan paused, noticing a hidden cave partially obscured by a rock formation. The hollow looked sturdy, large enough to shelter them from any sudden storms or residual energy pulses. "This could be our next shelter," he said, pointing toward the cave. "It's stable, and we can rest safely before continuing." The Queen examined it. "It seems wise to pause here, even for a short time. Safety is valuable. Let's the wise, with the loss part 8 on a vise." Inside the cave, Ethan inspected the walls and floor. Small fissures were visible, but nothing that threatened collapse. Using panels and lightweight materials from their ship, he reinforced weak points and created a reflective barrier to disperse residual energy. The Queen helped where she could, observing closely, learning from his approach. "You teach without realizing it," she said softly. "Even in a storm, you show that courage and intelligence are linked." "Eh?" Ethan looked at her, quietly appreciative. "Observation, logic, and planning. That's what keeps us safe. Strength alone cannot do this." As they rested, Ethan noticed the sun rising higher, casting light across the valley. Shadows revealed subtle shifts in the terrain, tiny cracks forming under stress from the storm's energy. Using his knowledge of physics and patterns, he marked safe paths, ensuring they would not encounter unstable ground when moving forward. The Queen watched him, understanding that the human's courage was quiet, intellectual, and adaptive. It was a type of strength she had rarely seen among her own species, where power and speed often overshadowed patience and careful thought. Hours later, they prepared to leave the cave. The valley ahead was wider, but still fraught with challenges. Uneven terrain, occasional residual energy bursts, and tricky slopes. Ethan assessed the situation carefully. "Look ahead," he said, pointing toward a narrow canyon. "It is the safest route forward, though it requires careful navigation. We can use natural formations as shields, and I can guide you step by step." The Queen nodded. "Lead the way. I trust you, Ethan." Step by step, they descended into the canyon. Ethan used his reflective panels to redirect residual energy pulses and small stones to stabilize footing. The Queen followed his instructions carefully, amazed at the precision of his guidance. Every movement was calculated, every action deliberate. Midway through the canyon, they encountered a stream of glowing liquid, likely residue from the storm's energy. The liquid was harmless but slick. Ethan quickly devised a way to cross. He positioned flat stones across the stream, creating a stable bridge. The Queen crossed, balancing carefully, while Ethan guided her verbally. "You think of everything," she said quietly, stepping onto the other side. Ethan smiled faintly. "Not everything. But small observations and adjustments can prevent big problems." The canyon narrowed further, creating a natural tunnel with overhanging rocks. Shadows shifted strangely, making depth perception difficult. Ethan moved slowly, testing each step. "Follow my steps exactly," he instructed. "I will guide you through this safely." The Queen trusted him completely. She mirrored his movements, listening carefully to his instructions. Step by step, they navigated the tunnel, emerging on the other side unscathed. Beyond the canyon lay a plateau overlooking the valley, where the sun's light revealed a distant settlement. It was not yet reachable, but it provided hope, a landmark guiding them forward. Ethan paused, observing the terrain. "We're close to safety," he said, "but we must remain cautious. One misstep now could undo everything we have done." The Queen smiled, a mixture of relief and admiration in her eyes. "You are extraordinary. Even without weapons or guards, you lead and protect with nothing but your mind and determination." Ethan shook his head. "I only do what is necessary. But today, we have learned that careful observation and clever thinking can overcome challenges even when strength fails." Together, they stood on the plateau, looking toward the distant settlement. The journey had tested their endurance, intelligence, and trust. But they had emerged stronger, their bond strengthened by shared challenges and mutual respect. The Queen finally spoke, her voice filled with quiet determination. "Tomorrow, we continue. "And I will follow your guidance, Ethan. You have shown me that courage is not only in arms but in thought, planning, and the will to endure." Ethan nodded. "Humans have a way of adapting to the unexpected, and we will continue, one careful step at a time." The sun rose fully, illuminating the alien landscape in warm light. For the Queen, the journey had become more than survival. It was a lesson in trust, intelligence, and the extraordinary value of humanity in a universe that often underestimated it. And somewhere beyond the valley, the moon's terrain held new challenges, waiting for Ethan and the Queen. But now, they faced them together, armed not with weapons, but with ingenuity, patience, and courage. The valley stretched out before Ethan and the Queen, bathed in the golden light of Virelia's twin suns. After the long trek through the storm-scarred terrain, they had reached a plateau overlooking a distant settlement. The alien structures shimmered faintly, a promise of safety and civilization beyond the moon's unpredictable wilds. Yet Ethan knew that the journey was not yet complete. The moon still held hazards, unexpected terrain shifts, unstable ground, and pockets of residual storm energy that could disrupt their path. Ethan turned to the Queen, who had grown increasingly confident in her human companion. "We're close," he said, "but we need to cross one last stretch. The terrain narrows, and any misstep could trap us before we reach the settlement." The Queen nodded. "I trust you, Ethan. You have guided me through every challenge. I will follow your lead." Step by step, they descended toward the narrow pass. The ground was littered with loose stones and small boulders, each potentially hazardous. Ethan carefully tested each step, rearranging rocks and placing reflective panels to stabilize the path. The Queen mirrored his movements, following his guidance precisely. "This reminds me of an old human principle," Ethan said softly, "that every problem can be solved if you take it one careful step at a time." The Queen smiled faintly. "One step at a time? Yes, that is wise." Halfway through the pass, they encountered a natural bridge, a thin arch of rock spanning a deep chasm. The bridge was narrow and uneven, swaying slightly under weight. Ethan studied it carefully. "We can cross," he said, "but we must move slowly and distribute our weight. The panels will help. Step exactly where I indicate." The Queen placed her hand on his shoulder. "I trust you completely." Ethan led the way, testing each step before moving. He placed panels along the arch to create a safer surface, stabilizing weak points. The Queen followed, her movements precise and deliberate, guided entirely by his instructions. Together, they crossed without incident. Once across, they paused. The plateau ahead was dotted with small caves and rocky shelters, remnants of explorers who had traversed the moon centuries before. Ethan studied the terrain carefully. "We can use these shelters as temporary protection if any energy pulses occur. They're stable, and I can reinforce them with materials from our ship." The Queen watched as Ethan worked, arranging panels and rocks to create safe enclosures. Each adjustment was calculated, distributing residual energy evenly and reducing the risk of sudden bursts. She realized that human courage was not always about bravery in battle. It was about foresight, intelligence, and the ability to act when others might hesitate. "You are extraordinary, Ethan," she said quietly. "I have seen many guardians, many warriors, but none like you. You protect without relying on force. You think, adapt, and endure." Ethan shook his head. "I only do what is necessary. Planning, observation, and careful action can protect more than weapons ever could." As they rested, a sudden tremor shook the plateau. Small stones tumbled across the ground, and a faint ripple of energy pulsed through the air. Ethan quickly assessed the situation. "It's residual from the storm. We can use the shelters here to protect ourselves while I stabilize the terrain." Using panels and reflective surfaces, he diverted the energy pulse, guiding it safely away from their location. The Queen observed, impressed by the humans' ingenuity. Where alien guards might have panicked or retreated, Ethan remained calm, calculating, and resourceful. Humans truly have a unique advantage, she said softly. We rely on strength and speed, but you rely on intelligence, foresight, and adaptability. That is what makes you remarkable. Ethan smiled faintly. We survive by observing, learning, and acting carefully. Sometimes that matters more than speed or strength. The Queen looked around the plateau, noticing the distant settlement shimmering in the sunlight. We are close, she said. One more challenge, and we will be safe. Ethan studied the final stretch. Between them and the settlement lay a narrow canyon with jagged rocks and small streams of glowing energy. It was treacherous, yet navigable with careful planning. This is the last stretch, he said. We must move carefully, step by step, panel by panel. I will guide you through. The Queen nodded. Lead the way, Ethan. I trust you completely. They entered the canyon. The walls rose high on either side, shadows twisting strangely in the sunlight. The ground was uneven, with small fissures and patches of residual energy. Ethan tested each step, adjusting panels to create stable footing. The Queen followed precisely, guided by his instructions. Halfway through, they reached a narrow stream of glowing liquid. Ethan examined it. It is slippery, but not dangerous. We can cross using these flat panels as a bridge. Step carefully and balance yourself. The Queen followed his guidance, placing each foot deliberately. Step by step, they crossed the stream safely. Ethan adjusted panels behind them to ensure stability. Beyond the stream, the canyon narrowed further, creating a natural tunnel. Shadows twisted, making depth perception difficult. Ethan paused, studying the path. Follow my steps exactly. I will guide you. The Queen nodded, trusting him completely. Step by step, they navigated the tunnel. Ethan's careful observation ensured that each movement was safe. When they emerged on the other side, the settlement was clearly visible, a beacon of civilization and safety. Ethan allowed himself a brief moment of relief. We've made it, he said softly. The Queen looked at him with admiration and gratitude. You have done more than protect me, she said. You have shown me the value of intelligence, patience, and courage. Today, a human has proven that true guardianship does not always require weapons or strength. It requires thought, planning, and unwavering determination. Ethan shook his head. I only did what was necessary. But yes, humans can do remarkable things when we stay calm and think ahead. As they approached the settlement, the Queen's guards returned, their expressions a mixture of awe and respect. They had witnessed from a distance the strange duo navigating the storm and terrain. While they had fled at first, they now understood that courage and protection could take many forms. The Queen addressed them, her voice strong and dignified. Observe closely, my guards. Strength is not the only measure of guardianship. Today, a human alone, unarmed, and clever has protected not only my life, but the stability of our mission. Learn from this example. Ethan walked beside her, feeling the quiet pride of accomplishment. His journey had not been easy, but his human traits, adaptability, observation, and courage had made the difference. The settlement welcomed them, providing supplies, shelter, and communication with the outside galaxy. The Queen formally acknowledged Ethan's role, ensuring that his contribution was recognized among her people. Later, as they stood overlooking the moon from the settlement, the Queen turned to Ethan. You have shown me that humans are remarkable. Your courage, ingenuity, and calm resolve have proven that we should never underestimate the potential of your species. Ethan smiled, humbled. Thank you, Your Majesty. I only did what was necessary. But perhaps this shows that humans can contribute in ways others might not expect, through thought, creativity, and determination. The Queen nodded. Indeed. Today, the galaxy has witnessed the human advantage, not in weapons, not in speed, but in intelligence, courage, and the ability to act when others flee. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the settlement, Ethan and the Queen reflected on their journey. The storm, the treacherous terrain, and the uncertainties of the moon had tested them both. Yet through careful thought, mutual trust, and clever planning, they had reached safety. The Queen's guards, now observing, learned an invaluable lesson. True guardianship sometimes comes not from force, but from ingenuity and the quiet courage to face the unexpected. Ethan stood beside the Queen, feeling the satisfaction of a mission completed. He had protected a civilization's leader, not with weapons or brute strength, but with human creativity and determination. The Queen placed her hand lightly on his shoulder. "Tomorrow we continue our journey," she said. "But today, you have taught us all that courage takes many forms. Humans are indeed extraordinary." Ethan nodded, looking out at the horizon. "And as long as humans can observe, adapt, and think ahead, there is no challenge too great." The twin suns set behind distant mountains, bathing the moon in golden light. The storm was gone, the danger past, and the lesson clear. The human spirit, resilient, clever, and courageous, could stand strong even when all others fled. And in that quiet moment, on a strange moon far from Earth, the Queen and the human ambassador shared a silent understanding. Intelligence, courage, and trust could protect more than any weapon ever could, and the galaxy had never witnessed a more subtle, extraordinary heroism.